Hello, everybody. I am not Connor Clancy. It's Dov taking over from Connor Clancy for another week because I think the wee Irish man's got the coronavirus or something. He's ill, so he says, so he's not able to join us. But thankfully for all you lot, you'll be delighted to know that Vito Doria and Kevin Pogorzelski are still here. They've not gone anywhere, luckily. Vito, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, Dov. I was away for the weekend, but I was still able to keep up to date with the latest Serie A action. And once again, a few more interesting results popped up this weekend. So happily here to chat about them.
Yeah, and Kevin, you just managed to get in the door from Italy. You look very dishevelled.
Yeah, I'm not too bad. I'm feeling a little dishevelled, yeah, but it's all good my end.
Yeah, all good. There we go. All good. Right then, we'll get stuck into it then. We're going to start. We'll start from the south and we'll work our way up. Right. I think that's a good idea. Napoli, who've been rubbish for a wee while, they hosted Juventus at the Stadio San Paolo off the back of a Coppa Italia win over Lazio. And I think everybody going into this game expected Juventus to crush Napoli. At least I did, like 3, maybe 4-0, something like that. However, it didn't work out like that. Napoli won 2-1. Zielinski scored just after the hour. Insigne scored just before the end. Cristiano Ronaldo got what was a consolation for Juve. But Vito, Napoli totally deserved it. They were better than Juventus, outplayed them, got the 3 points. Gattuso's grinta is here, and Sarri's rubbish.
It's been an incredible turnaround in the last couple of competitive games for Napoli because they bet Lazio in the Coppa Italia midweek, and now they produced this result against the reigning Serie A champions. So this should be an incredible confidence booster. And then performance-wise, they looked like they were better organised and had the greater desire to obtain the result. Lorenzo Insigne was the ultimate difference maker, though, with his shot playing a part in the opening goal for Piotr Zielinski, and then he scored a fine goal to make it 2-0 before Ronaldo got his consolation prize.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think before that, Napoli hadn't won like 6 games in a row in Serie A at home, which was obviously for Napoli, that's unbelievable. And I think that kind of that's like their worst performance at home. When you have to go back to when they were first promoted from Serie B. And that's how kind of bad they've been this season. Kev, what do you think has been the difference in this past week for Napoli? Because Gattuso didn't start very well, but it seems like a week in which everybody expected them to lose 2 games, they've came up and he's done something miraculous.
Yeah, and I'll admit I thought they'd lost when I went to bed on Sunday evening because I'd sort of not rushed back from the Rome derby and was let's say a little under the influence of alcohol, and I had a little alert pop up on the phone and it was telling me that the last goal had gone. It was Cristiano Ronaldo, and I think all it registered with me was seeing the 2-1 that Napoli had lost because they'd been so bad in the last few weeks. They were a little fortuitous midweek with getting an early goal against Lazio, and Lazio kind of falling apart, if anything. But they also did put a good performance in, and yeah, at times they were overrunning Juve on Sunday night and deserved it. I don't really know where it's come from because it's tagged onto the back of the Lazio game. You maybe would have looked at the narrative around Higuain coming back, Sarri coming back, not just the fans being disappointed with where they've gone after leaving them, and maybe the players have sort of bought into that and sort of ground it out. Maybe that's what Gattuso got them rolled up with at the start of the game.
Well, the thing is, if Juventus didn't have their first shot on target until the 63rd minute. Now, this is the team that we all kind of say about Juve are the best team in Italy. They're so far ahead of everybody, blah, 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 and we know how good Juve are. For a Napoli team that's been struggling to kind of nullify Juve for over an hour, Vito, is amazing from a Napoli point of view and really bad from Juve's point of view.
Oh, it's quite staggering to think that it took 63 minutes for Juventus to get a shot on target, because of the recent dominance of the league, as well as the last couple of months that Napoli have had to endure. If we look at it tactically, Gattusos put the team back in its natural formation, or formation that suits them the best, the 4-3-3, which was implemented by Sarri during his time there. And the new midfielder that Napoli bought from RB Leipzig, Diego Demme, he's been getting a lot of plaudits for his play. And based from the couple of games I saw of him at Leipzig, he's the kind of guy that can sit in front of the defence, and he'll be in the middle of that midfield trio, and he'll win the ball back, keep it simple with his distribution. And he seems to be that missing link in that Napoli midfield, because Allen, who did not feature in this game, offers different attributes. He's become more of a box-to-box player. So I suppose a player like him has been a handy acquisition so far.
Yeah, well, Allen probably won't be there for much longer, so it's probably a good job they've got Demi in to kind of take his place somewhat. Kev, going back to go to Juve then. After the game, Sarri was asked what he thought about Napoli winning, and he basically said that he was happy for the lads because he'd coached a lot of them, and he still has a fondness for Napoli because he was there for a couple of years, and that didn't go down too well with the Juve fans.
No, I imagine it didn't. I wouldn't expect either side in that situation to want to be hearing Sarri come out and almost praise the players there. Football by its nature is very tribal, and we've seen in the past that there's been some anger between the two sets of sides, derogatory. I can see you smirking as I'm trying to put that as politely as I can. But
anger, it goes a bit further than that.
We know the two don't get on, and it could be one side blowing it out of proportion. I'm sure he was well-meaning, but it maybe moves towards this. The people that were unhappy with the Sarri appointment, that maybe didn't have the prestige to take over at Juve. Maybe a more experienced manager, even not that he hasn't got years behind him, would have just gave a political answer to get around it.
Well, the one thing I like about Sarri, because obviously I go and I see Juventus are probably the team I see the most actually, and Sarri's funny. Sarri, he's not kind of, he doesn't really do. He does some of his kind of media trained answers, but on the odd occasion you just get something where you maybe don't expect him to answer the way he does, and for me I kind of like it because it gives you something that's more interesting to write about or read about. When if he says he spent 3 seasons there, so. He's got to be happy for some of the players that he coached. I can kind of understand them, and for me, I think some of the fans that I think they were called him naive and basically saying, essentially, what is he thinking about talking about Napoli in this way? And I'm just like, you guys need to relax. I'm sure Conte, for example, at Inter would talk about Juventus in a positive way, and even though he's coach of Inter, it doesn't make him a bad man. So
yeah, you're right. It is refreshing, but maybe the outrage from the Juve side gives an indication to how close they're being run this season by two sides now that Lazio are very much in the race.
Mm-hmm. And Vito, anything about Juve? I mean, what did you think of the performance? Because like we kind of mentioned, they weren't very good.
No, they weren't at their best. There's a thing, I don't know what it is, but Dybala seems to get taken off probably too soon sometimes. I guess that Sarri has this faith in Higuain because of their relationship at Napoli. And then, of course, you have Cristiano Ronaldo, who does not take in too well to being substituted. So, as well as Dybala has been playing for Juventus under Sarri, whenever there has to be a change up front, for some reason, Dybala is the unlucky guy, and Higuain probably did not have his best game despite having 2 chances to score. His efforts, especially that bicycle kick at the end, which Merritt saved pretty easily, didn't have much power in it. So Yeah, it's a matter of you got to take your chances when you get them, even if you're playing
Well,
poorly.
they didn't get any chances, Vito. That was the problem. They didn't get any. I think with Dybala, well, for me, Dybala coming off, that was just Sarri trying to change the kind of formation and the setup up front, because he brought on Bernardeschi and Douglas Costa, obviously going for a bit more width, I think, and it didn't really make that much difference. Although saying that, for me, Dybala has been probably Juve's best player this season. So I think you're maybe right. He does get taken off a bit too soon. Do you think this will have any long-term repercussions for Juve, Vito? Do you think they're their second defeat of the season in all competitions, to be fair? So I don't think it's much to worry about. But do you?
At this stage, I'm not completely sold that it will result in something worse or a form slump as such. But in a way, I'm more or less using the Champions League as a bit of a barometer. They have a rather easy game on paper against Lyon coming up, but depending on who they draw in the quarterfinals, assuming they do progress, depending on who's fit and also who's in form, that might be the real difference maker then in those Champions League ties. Whereas the league, you have Inter that have had the recent slips. Lazio have been fantastic, but as I've said numerous times on the pod this season, if one or two of the key players suffer any serious injuries, I think that would be detrimental to any chances they have of winning a third Scudetto in their history. So I think at this stage it's probably better to be a bit on the cautious side or pessimistic side and just say that Juve will still find a way to get these results regardless of who's fit in their team or who's in form.
Right, cool. There we go. Right, move on. There was a big game a bit further up Italy, in the capital, the Derby della Capitale, the Rome derby, Roma v Lazio. It was 1-1, and Edin Dzeko and Acerbi scored, but it was really Strakosha and Paul Lopez who screwed everything up. Kev.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who was there, by the way, everybody? Kev was there.
I was,
at the Stadio
I was in the
Olimpico.
Curva Sud, and I think we were all expecting a different game than what we got, because I think the people around me, I think sort of looked a little apprehensive and were expecting to be kind of up against it for the Lazio attack, but they really dominated. I know Lazio have got a lot of goals late on just recently, but Roma looked the side that were probably pushing for the title, and then you were just gobsmacked as the goal sort of looped up. It hit the base of the post, and I don't think anybody around me knew whether to celebrate even when Dzeko had wheeled away, because we couldn't quite believe it had gone in. The mistake was just so awful. And then there were a number of people checking their phones when the corner got fired over and then the ball cannoned up into the air, and I think a few of us had sort of cast our heads elsewhere when we heard roars going up from other bits of the stadium. It was a surreal feeling at times.
Obviously, was that the first time you were at the derby, the Rome derby?
No, I was there 2 years ago, but not in either end, and it was it was an even worse game, but more even. But it was 0-0 when there was just nerves, if you like, about 3 weeks before the end of the season, and they were both challenging for fourth place, which I think Roma took.
And what about the atmosphere? Obviously, some people, maybe new listeners, and might not have heard about that story. I'm sure you would have told it then. The atmosphere around Rome and kind of what was it like? Because obviously you've been to a few derbies in your time.
Yeah, and compared to the last Rome derby, which was a little bit subdued until the Lazio fans came sort of walking through the north area of the Stadio Olimpico. This time around, at the southern part, where there was a couple of bars that our friend Alistair McKenzie took me to and joined me. He won't like me for saying that. Before he went in to cover the game. And again, it was, I kind of expected everybody to be a little bit apprehensive about playing Lazio, who are on a 12-game winning streak before obviously they lost in the Coppa Italia, but they all seemed absolutely up for it. Drinking, singing, enjoying the football that was going on beforehand as well. And it wasn't as as aggressive.
No stabbing, no stabbing.
There was no stabbing, no aggressive behaviour towards other fans. Not that there were many mixing, but yeah, certainly if you're somebody looking to go to the game, I would certainly recommend it if you can get a ticket early and get it at a good price, because it's nowhere near as bad as what media outside of Italy would like neutrals to think the trouble that the game gets.
There we go. Right, just a few statistics before we go somewhere else. Well, we cannot go somewhere else. That was Lazio. Lazio are undefeated in 15 Serie A games in a row, and the first time they've done that was the first time since 2007 that they've done that. And they've managed to get 13 points from losing positions as well this season, which is more than any other team. So I think that kind of gives a bit of a hint or a kind of look into the mentality of this Lazio team as well. So yeah, there we go. Now, for all those listening or not listening on the audio version, you're not going to hear this, but so go and download it, because now you can hear me talking to Alistair McKenzie, who was #FIF at the games, covering the Rome derby for Forza Italian Football.com. And obviously, for those of you who don't have the audio version, then you'll just have to stick with us, because we are going to go up a bit further north again, because on Sunday, the early kick-off on Sunday was Inter against Cagliari, a team that Inter smashed in the Coppa Italia, but this time it was 1-1. Lautaro Martinez scored just before the half hour, but then the man, Radja Nainggolan, equalised, 12 minutes to go, celebrated against his former team, and Inter were angry, Vito. Lautaro Martinez got sent off in 90 minutes, and you'll love this, Bernie, the third choice goalkeeper, he's been at Inter for, I think, 6 years? He's been there 6 years, 0 appearances, 1 red card. Here you go. Vito, what on earth happened in this one? And then I'll tell you, because I was there.
Yeah, bizarre to say the least. Well, Inter took the lead through Martinez, and it was the new signing, Ashley Young. He provided the cross for that. And then Nainggolan came there to, annoy his parent club and score an equaliser, albeit with a bit of a deflection, which threw Handanovic off by the look of things. But then at the end, Martinez, I think he got a yellow card originally for a foul. And then for some reason, he retaliated so badly and aggressively. And then the referee just pulled out the red card, and he just completely lost his mind at that moment. I thought it wasn't the worst challenge, but to get a yellow card, he was so sensitive about it. Just outraged over a yellow card. It was unbelievable.
What I didn't understand was the 90th minute he got this yellow card and then got sent off. So the 90th minute, the game was going to finish a draw. Right, there's nothing, like, I don't understand why he's going absolutely mental, and now obviously he's going to be suspended, and it's just for me it just seemed like much ado about nothing. And then at the end of the match, Bernie, who I mentioned before, the third choice goalkeeper, he ran up to the referee and just grabbed his hand and gave him a big massive sarcastic handshake, and the Inter bench kind of made a beeline for the referee after the game, and he had to be escorted off by must have been Lega Serie A officials, because obviously they were unhappy with his performance. After the game, Antonio Conte didn't talk to the press. They said he was ill, but I seen it, he came through the mix zone. He didn't look ill. He looked more angry than ill. And I think it was the assistant Stellini said that they were a bit unhappy with some of the refereeing decisions. And I think Handanovic said that as well. And I think that was the only media really that kind of comments post-match that they did. So they seemed a bit... They just, for me, I thought it was a bit of an overreaction. I could kind of understand, right? Some decisions maybe were a bit silly and could have went their way, but I think overall, Inter just didn't play well. If you ask me, they didn't play well enough and didn't get the result they wanted. Vito. No,
that sounds about right. And there were a few moments where Handanovic actually had to make some really good saves in the game too. Not only that, early on in the game, Giovanni Simeone missed a pretty good chance to give Cagliari the lead before Inter got their goal, but he just blasted the ball right over the bar. So if I was to talk about Simeone specifically, I mean, he's a hard worker, and he does get the odd goal, but some of his misses are pretty poor.
Yeah, no, that one was one. I think it was the header from Farago. It was just before half time that Handanovic made a really good save on, and it was kind of one of those ones where it's like I think here's the good statistic that a colleague of ours came up with. Right, here's one. You'll love this, Kev. Right, and every season since 2013, Inter have only won one game in January. So every January they only win one match. So they have their annual January slump, Kevin. I mean, obviously you'll have seen some of the reaction or non-reaction and the Inter fans going crazy. I mean, what do you make of it all?
I don't know. You wonder whether they're getting, they're seeing the signings that are coming in. I know Ashley Young provided the assist, but they've got to a point this year where they really needed to kick on. Once they had that little blip, and it hasn't come. It's sort of starting to snowball now into, Antonio Conte getting his knickers in a twist and getting all upset and running through mix zones. And I don't think that sends a great message, because it's that whole, if they're going to complain about the refereeing decisions, and you said that although it looks as though the referee's taken a little bit of a dim view of whatever Martinez has done there. I'm glad you clarified that he got yellow carded for the challenge, because when I looked at the highlights, it looked like he'd been booked twice for dissent, and which I thought was a little bit overzealous from the official. But if you're going to keep trotting out that as an excuse, it almost gives the players a little bit of an out rather than looking at themselves. And the performance on the day just wasn't good enough. And maybe they're welcome. We roll into February and hopefully start picking 3 points up again, because they can't. They really need to capitalise on Napoli beating Juventus, because then when they went to the San Paolo and were successful, it was seen as not a turning point, but a bit of a marker for going to one of the most difficult places to go before Gattuso got there and Ancelotti took them downhill.
Well, that was their marker. That was Inter's only win in January in Serie A. So that was they got their win out of the way first, and then decided to draw their next three.
Absolutely, it's instead of being their marker, it's become the chain around their ankle, dragging them back.
As well, something one of the things that surprised me after the game was Cagliari had 60% of the ball over the match, 60% possession, which it didn't look like that. But I was very surprised when I found out that, and I think that kind of gives you a bit of an indication about where Inter are. Borja Valero played in Marcelo Brozovic's position just in front of the defence, and he did all right for about the first hour, maybe a bit less, but then kind of as the match went on, kind of faded away. And I think Brozovic is fundamental for Inter, for keeping the ball, recycling the ball, kind of starting their attacks for them. And then when he's not there, they don't look like they're as stable in midfield, or kind of have the same impetus about them. So what they've gone and done, Kev, they've gone and got Christian Eriksen.
They have, yeah, which probably a couple of weeks ago when I wrote they should just pay the money that Daniel Levy wanted and get him.
They have.
It still looks like a really shrewd acquisition, but because they've sort of had this sort of mini slump, you want to almost involve him in the side on a positive note, coming off the back of maybe that Napoli win, and it now looks as though all eyes are going to be on him, say he started or came off the bench in the next game. I think the quality's there that won't happen. I think he's really going to ramp up now, looking to play a part in Euro 2020. But I think it can only be positive for Inter.
Where do you think he'll play? Do you think who will he replace? Sensi, Barella? Or I've heard even people suggest Brozovic will be ousted and Eriksen will play deeper.
Well, I think you'd probably look at Sensi first to replace him. I think they've been handed, 1 or 2 games that Martinez will get for a suspension. Depends if he brings him straight in, if he deems him fit enough. He's clearly not been playing for Tottenham for political reasons rather than fitness ones. So you could then play him behind Lukaku. The issue then is when Martinez comes back, And I saw someone reference the Mourinho side that has Schneider behind Milito and what would have been Samuel Eto'o, although Eto'o used to pull wide. But I think you just get him in the team, or even if that's a soft launch, if you like, fade him in.
Yeah, you don't sound very convinced, Kev. Vito, what do you think about this? The Inter basically shopping in the Premier League for all their players. Victor Moses, obviously didn't come from the Premier League, but spent majority of his career there. Ashley Young came in, got an assist. Eriksen's coming in, possibly Giroud coming in as well. It seems like Inter they're only got a one shop in January.
Well, this unfortunately has created this narrative, especially used by the British media and APL bandwagoner fans, that Inter and Serie A in general are just using the Serie A. Well, the Serie A has basically become like a retirement league or recycling league for Premier League players. So it's not a good look in that regard. But with Conte, it looks like he has looked at players that he's coached or has coached against while he was at Chelsea. So there are players that are familiar with his methods, as well as players that he feels that can add to his top of football. The Christian Eriksen signing, though, is probably a bit of a different one because he's not known to be that sort of workhorse type that Conte usually wants. But if we look back at Juventus's early dominance when Conte was coach, they did have Andrea Pirlo in the team, and he added a bit of grace, bit of vision to that side. So perhaps Eriksen will add something different to this team, and the other players, they'll probably suit Conte's methods in general more because they fit that sort of traditional British play, if you like, that sort of that speed, that aggression, and that work ethic, which usually typifies players from the British Isles or who have featured in the English Premier League.
Yeah, well, that's exactly my theory, Vito. That's why I think he's basically exclusively shopping in England, is because those players, even though Ashley Young, I think, is 34, 35, Eriksen, obviously, in his prime, Moses as well, and Giroud's getting on a bit. They've all played in a high-intensity league, and we know that Conte obviously expects high-intensity football, but also the training sessions are high intensity as well. So he needs players that can kind of keep up with large physical demands. And obviously, like you say, Vito, and players who've played in England, they have that kind of almost off the bat. So, I think Inter are making signings, reshaping their squad again. And obviously, with Juve's defeat in Napoli, where it looked like there possibly could have been 6 points behind Juve come the end of the weekend, they actually end up gaining a point, and they're only 3 points behind Juve at the end of the weekend. So I think it's all the moaning for nothing. Much ado about nothing. So there you go. Right, let's go further north and west, and we'll go to Turin, because on Saturday night, Atalanta went to Torino and smashed 7 goals past Torino. 7. S-E-V-E-N, 7. Ilicic got 3, Muriel got 2, Gustin's got 1, and Zapata got another. Vito, I'm coming straight to you on this one. Because Clancy's not here, I don't want to talk about them too much, because I'm sure everybody's bored about talking about how amazing Atalanta are, but Christ almighty, Atalanta are amazing, right?
On the day, they are an absolutely fantastic side to watch, and they'll just steamroll any team in their path. The kind of team that won't just settle down for a 2-0 or 3-0. They will not show mercy on the opponent. This particular game, though, I thought was really out of the ordinary. Walter Mazzarri's teams are usually very well drilled defensively, and Torino getting into the Europa League at the end of last season, although with a bit of help with Milan's situation, they were built on having a strong defence. In this particular game, though, this pretty much typified what Atalanta is about, just that attacking play, that desire to score more than the opponent. And the scary thing to think about is that Sirigu still had to make quite a few saves. So if he didn't make those saves, they could have easily scored over 10, and that would have been really damning on this Granata side.
Kev, I mean, you gave Josip Ilicic your player of the week. How does he manage to do this? Because this is something he manages to do quite often. You just have these amazing games where he'll bag a hat-trick or 2 goals and completely run riot.
Yeah, well, he scored 2 hat-tricks for Atalanta last season. He sort of jinked past a couple of defenders and won the penalty as well, which Zapata scored from. You know, there's Zapata and Muriel both sort of breaking Atalanta's recent run of fluffing penalties. But he's like that old saying of a fine wine growing better with age. But the sort of foresight he saw to spot Sirigu, who was, as Vito was saying, having a great game despite conceding all those goals off his line, was wonderful to see. I think Atalanta can just do this to sides, and you wouldn't put it past them going into the second leg of their Champions League game soon with a sort of a deficit to overturn and doing it. That said, I was just shocked with how bad Torino are at defending this year.
Well, they went straight into a retiro after the game. Mazzarri was, I think he said he was embarrassed and all that rubbish. But Atalanta, right? They've scored 5 goals 8 times in their history in Serie A, and 6 of those 8 times have been under Gasperini. There you go. And what is that? That's their they've won a 7-goal margin, the first time they've ever had a victory by a 7-goal margin in their history as well. And Ilicic has scored 3 or more goals in Serie A, or a Serie A match for the 4th time since 2018. Only Aguero and Messi have had more hat-tricks in that period in Europe's top 5 leagues. So that kind of shows you how just how on fire they are just in general. They're obviously they are top scorers in Serie A, 10 goals more than Lazio. Was it 17 more than Juve? I think you could probably say like that Ilicic will have more goals than the likes of Milan and stuff like that this year as well. So it's the fairy tale continues for Atalanta. Right, where will we go next? Right, we'll go back the other way. We'll go east because Friday night, we're going all the way back to Friday. Milan took on Brescia at the Stadio Rigamonti, Vito, and it was that man, Ante Rebic, scored again, 3 goals in 2 games. It was only a 1-0 win, so he got the winner in this one. However, that didn't tell the whole story, did it?
No, it didn't, because Brescia played reasonably well and had a good amount of chances to score. I thought Ernesto Torregrossa was quite a handful for the Milan defence and probably should have scored quite a few goals himself, not just the one. He probably should have scored at least 2 or even a hat-trick. But Gianluigi Donnarumma had a very good game in the Milan goal. He was decisive at the back. And then, of course, came Ante Rebic playing the super sub again and getting his 3rd goal in just 2 games. So after being written off as a flop early on in the season, he's had a pretty good recent turnaround.
Yeah, Purely said that he came back with more hunger after the Christmas break. So that's the reason that he's getting in amongst the goals. Kev, Milan, this is the first time this season Milan have won 4 games in a row in all competitions, right? So they're clearly on some kind of good run of form, but the performances are still not there. So do you think this is just a little bit of kind of a fortuitous run that will probably end soon, and then we'll be back to seeing the Milan that we saw in the first half of the season?
Yeah, you would think so, just based on the performances. I think people get a bit carried away looking at the result. Obviously, if you can slowly improve while you're picking up those wins, more the better. But they have looked decidedly shaky at times. And Friday night against Brescia, you would have said they looked on a par with a side that's recently promoted to Serie A, and could have gone ahead themselves. So I think Milan fans should probably count their blessings that they are picking up these wins, if that can lead to a little bit more on the way of performances and not just on the result sheet.
The fixture list kind of late has been, I think, quite favourable. Obviously, they started off the new year with Sampdoria at home. We know how crap Sampdoria are. Cagliari that was a decent win away there because they are having a good season. But then Spal, Udinese, and Brescia are all teams that that are in a relegation battle. If they're not kind of right in it, they'll probably be there soon. Torino just got thumped 7 goals to 0. Then after that, you've got Hellas, Inter, Fiorentina, Torino kind of in their next few games. So you're kind of thinking that the easy period for Milan's kind of over, and now they're going to have a couple of games where things could go against them, and then that's going to kind of in turn lead to more poor results.
Yeah, I think sometimes though Milan can, if you take the game where they started this run against Cagliari, and Cagliari have been a little bit inconsistent, but certainly performed far better than Milan at times this season, and Milan almost dragged the opposition down to their level in the last few weeks, and managed to grind them down and get results that way. And it would be interesting to see if they can do that in the derby in 2 weeks, the 8th of February.
Yeah, 8th of February. Yes.
But maybe Conte will like that Milan go into the game positive, thinking they're this side that they're not, and they'll just swoop in and hit them on the break.
It's really Zlatan, Vito, though, and Zlatan just being there makes all the difference.
As strange as it might be, as it seems, I think even at his age, just having his presence there up front has made a difference. He wasted about 2 chances against Brescia to score, but having him involved in the build-up of the play and using him as a reference point gives those players a bit of confidence, especially considering the career that he's had. And not only that, because of his character and charisma, he is that experienced person, that leader on the field. So he's got that arrogance about him too, but I think that's part of what Zlatan is. He backs his own ability, and when others have doubts, he's the guy that has 0 doubts, or he does not show them whatsoever. So a guy like him, just on the field or even in the locker room, I think is good for Milan at this stage.
Yeah, well, there we go. Well, they are level with Cagliari on points, 31 points. Cagliari are above them on goal difference. So Europa League places are certainly on for Milan if they keep their own form going. Right, so let's look at some other results. Parma beat Udinese 2-0, Kulusevski and Gagliolo getting on the score sheet. Hellas Verona beat Lecce 3-0. Pazzini got the third of their 3 goals from the penalty spot. He's back at getting the goals. Spal were beaten by Bologna. Musa Barro, Atalanta boy, scoring. Well done. And Poli scoring. And there was a lovely picture I've seen floating about where it looked like he had snakes coming out his head, which I thought was quite interesting. And then 2-0 draws. Fiorentina Genoa, which was absolute garbage game, and Sampdoria Sassuolo, which was even more of a garbage game. Sampdoria played against 10 men from the 25th minute, and it was just horrendous. Vito, I think, what was it, Vito, you said you tried to even watch highlights of it, and even that was just too much for you to bear.
Yeah, that's about right. Not many chances, and it's not good when you're the team that has the man advantage and you still can't score. But I think it's a reflection of Ranieri's methods, and he's just happy just to pick up the points.
Oh, it's not even Ranieri's methods. Don't be silly, Vito. It's just the whole rubbish team that you've got. Everything's rubbish. And everything's rubbish in Genoa right now.
Yeah, unfortunately, from a football perspective, it's not looking good at the moment. Now Ferrero is apparently keen to sell, but again, it could be another part of
September. You said this in September. I'm sure you said this end of last season. Probably in 3 years' time, you'd be like, "Oh yeah, Ferrero's going to sell." I've heard, but it's never going to happen. Because
it's the same narrative, the same rhetoric, and who knows when we'll hear an official announcement. Yeah,
there we go. Right, well, that's us almost done, but there's some, is it sad news, poignant news? A legend of the game has hung up his boots. Mr. Kevin Constant, Cabo legend, Milan legend. Where else did he go? Trabzonspor legend. He decided, for personal reasons, to give it up. Kev, I know you're a big fan of Kevin. What's your greatest memory of the flying winger?
Oh, well, obviously we share the same forename, so I've followed his career very, very closely. I think I remember him having an atrocious game that first time you pulled the Forza Italia writers over for a weekend in Italy when they won by a solitary Volta Birsa goal. So maybe the fact that ever managed to sign for a couple at Milan should be his high point.
He would walk into this Milan team right now, Kev. That's how good he is. He'd be like, "Listen, Rebic, get back on the bench. Kevin is here."
Did he have any? Did he have? So, I'm going to be a bit sort of sensible here for a moment, but did he have any really big injury struggles? Because he's only 32, and it does seem a little young to be.
Well, I think he was playing in Iran with a team called Tractor. I'm actually saying that. I'm just obviously the fountain of all knowledge. Wikipedia said that in June last year, his contract was terminated after he failed a medical. So there you go. So I don't think he's not had a club since the summer, and decided for personal reasons to give it up. But there you go, Kevin Constant. What a player! And the other one, I thought it was bad, right? Kevin Constant retiring, and then who goes and retires like the next day? Stefano Sorrentino. He goes and hangs up his gloves. I say, Jesus Christ, what is going on? All these legends just giving it up. But then, Vito, what happened today? Because we got some good news.
Yeah, he's back playing, and this time he's going to play as a striker, and he's going to be coached by his dad.
So there you go. What is it? The team's called Cervo, and as it's in Liguria, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So he's thought, I've done goalkeeping, great at that. I'll do the striking. There you go. Yeah. Easy peasy. So yeah, Sorrentino's back, kinda. Right. I think that's it, lads. Any other business? No.
That's it.
No other business, right? You'll all be delighted to hear that Connor Clancy will probably be back this time next week. So look forward to that. Kevin, Vito, thank you very much for putting up with me again. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome.
Mine too.
And listeners, I'm sure it's been a pleasure for you as well. So until the next time Connor Clancy's dying, there's nothing left for me to say apart from arrivederci.